2 years ago, I started waking up at 3 a.m. and I wanted to kill myself. Underneath all of it was this belief that I'm not enough. The reason I'm bringing this up is it's the most important thing anyone can do who is suffering is...
If you think that you don't have mentally what it takes to lead a company, this guest is going to prove you wrong. We're talking to Blake Mycoskie, who built Tom's, but maybe you don't know that he started out probably just like you and I. No cash, no credentials, and started not one company, but a ton of them.
After I sold Tom's, I got super depressed. I built like what I think is the perfect company. I gave 100 million children shoes. I made more money than I ever could imagine. And I felt empty. No matter what I did, no matter how much success I had, I just never felt that I was enough. When you feel enough, you have so much peace because then you can actually just be. In 3 days, we sold $100,000 worth of laundry services. Boom! Everyone signed up.
No big deal. That's wild. How many times do you think you've been rejected?
You can think of any celebrity that has had a mental health challenge. I have cold called every single one of them now. And I only have 6 founding partners.
You want to call one of them out publicly? One of my favorite things about you, actually, that I didn't know is what you're not famous for, actually, which is all these other businesses that you started. And a lot of them, you didn't even have a lot of money. Some of them, maybe you have money today, but you don't use money as like the main driver for growth. No. So I wanted to ask you, for somebody listening today who wants to start a business, but thinks, I don't have the cash to do it, I don't have the credentials to do it, what would you tell that person?
I mean, first thing I would say is I often think a startup having money is like a detriment. Yeah, like I never have raised money in any business I've started. And I've always felt like if you can bootstrap it and prove and get customers and make it work, well, then you have, a better chance of success. But I mean, Tom's, the entire company was started $3,000. My laundry business I started for $500. My online driver's ed company that I started maybe was, $1,500. So like I've never actually the one business that I started that didn't work, I spent a couple $1 million starting it. Now that I think about it, yeah. I started a habit formation company called Made For with a good friend of mine, Navy SEAL, amazing. We had Andrew Huberman as one of our advisors. Like it was locked and loaded and I put $3.5 million in it. 0 today. Yeah.
I love that because we bootstrap all of our companies.
Yeah.
And I kind of think the same thing. It's like if you put a bunch of fuel on a fire that's going the wrong direction, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Were there things that you believed back then that now, through multiple exits, selling a business for, 50% at a 600 mil valuation, multiple businesses you started that you're like, that was such a lie that they told me starting out in business. And now I know this to be the truth.
I think one of the things is that I don't think that having experience in an industry makes you more likely to have success. Because when you have experience, you kind of know the rules, so you don't have like the courage to break them. And you're limited. You already start with a set of beliefs that are limiting the innovation that you would have. Like I started, a cable television at work, no experience in that. Driver's ed company, 0 experience in that. Tom's, obviously I'd never made a pair of shoes before. I was down in Argentina, enough. I mean, now like I've never made bracelets and accessories. So I actually think that's one of the biggest lies we're told is small businesses or entrepreneurs is that you need to have experience. And then the second thing I learned, which I learned very much the hard way at Tom's, is that once you grow and you get to a certain size, you need experts. That's the biggest bunch of bullshit ever. I mean, literally, like the number of people that I brought in to Tom's later, like once we were like a couple $100 million business, that quote had like big company expertise did not help. If anything, it affected the culture in a negative way, caused more complexity. They want to bring their own systems in, their own teams. It created like way more overhead than we ever needed. So you don't need a lot of experience to start. And if anything, having experience might limit your innovative thinking. And then if you are lucky enough to build something that really starts scaling, when they start telling you like, oh, you need to bring in this expertise, I don't think it's true. And I think my sister's a great example of that. My sister, runs Aviator Nation and, she owns 100% of the company, has never brought in, quote, the experts. And she and a small group of really passionate people built an incredible brand.
Yeah. What did your parents feed you guys? Why are you both so successful? That's so crazy. I mean,
and my brother too. My brother has, a lot of people know, my brother has this amazing online golf company called My Golf Club. And basically it allows people to get by far the lowest prices of any golf equipment on the internet. And it's through a membership model. And so he hasn't been as like well known in the media, but he's also crushing it.
what do you attribute that to? Like, what is it, parenting or genetics?
Yeah, I think our parents were like always just like, if you can believe it, just go do it. Like we didn't have any fear growing up of failure. And I think maybe because, we grew up, my dad was a doctor, my mom was an author, she did very well, he did well. Like we had a nice safety net. So a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people, don't have the luxury of just going for it. But also I just think from a psychological perspective, our parents are always instilling confidence in us and always, encouraging us to like really go for what we believe in.
Can you remember a moment where like it really made you who you are as a kid because of what your parents did? Like were there moments where you
my mom basically put my dad through medical school. And then years later, I think I was 15 at the time. My sister was like 11. My brother was like 7. She decided she wanted to write a cookbook. And she was like, you know what? I have this idea for this cookbook. I think it'll help a lot of people lose weight. It's about cutting the fat out. It's good for your heart. This whole thing. She had, didn't go to college, had no experience writing books. Like my dad bought her a word processor at Walmart. And she wrote this book and it became the #1 best-selling cookbook in America for 3 years. Wow. And she made millions of dollars.
So it's like, just do things.
Yeah, just do things. Just like if you have an idea, just try it. And so I think that really created that entrepreneurial spirit in my brother and my sister and I.
Yeah. And you've told me even just our short time hanging out here, a bunch of stories about how you get people to get excited about a product or business without having a bunch of cash, which I love.
Yes.
So like, I want to talk about, you were talking about 2 companies you're interested in right now. And one of them, you're like, how we're going to get everybody into this. And then you told me your strategy. Will you tell them the strategy for the chair company?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the best things to do for a company is to try to find a way to be integrated into natural conversations. And it's also it's also this thing that like Seth Godin, the great marketing genius who I love, he writes about the purple cow. And the purple cow is, it's like if you're driving down the highway and you're looking at cows and then you see a purple one, you're going to stop, you're going to take a picture of it, you're going to tell everyone. So it's got to be remarkable. So first off, when you're starting a business, like if the more your product itself can be remarkable, but then it's like, how do we naturally integrate it into where conversations are already happening? So this chair company is called the Pivot Chair, PVOT. Okay. So Pivot Chair, these guys are engineers from Nike. They're there for like 30 years and they realized that sitting is the new smoking. Like we were way too sedentary. And so they developed a chair that it's the only chair in the world, and they have all these patents on it, that literally has 2 axis points. So it moves this way and it moves this way. And so when you sit in the pivot chair, if you're not prepared, you'll fall over. But if you're prepared and you engage your core a little bit, all the pressure goes out of your lower back. And it's like the most amazing experience ever. You can sit in it all day. It's not like it makes you sore, but it engages you enough that it's the equivalent of thousands of steps. And everyone's looking to count steps, right? And so what my idea to them was, I was like, guys, like, because we're getting ready to do an investment round, the company launches in July. And I said, I think the only people we have invest in this next round are podcast hosts, because they sit in a chair a big part of the day, and then their guests sit in the chair. And so rather than them have to like do an ad about it, just have the guests sit there. And for the first 5 minutes of every conversation, it's going to be, what the fuck am I sitting in? And then naturally you're going to talk about like why this is so good for us. And so that's an example of like taking something that might be hard to explain. And that's when you need lots of money for marketing and advertising, and just letting someone experience it in an environment that's naturally going to get people talking about it.
Yeah.
And so like we have no marketing budget for that company. We don't need it, because it's just, if people sit in it, they want one.
How do you come up with ideas like this that don't take money, but just creativity? Like, do you have a creative process?
I think the creative process is, I just love people. I love talking to people. I love meeting strangers. I love asking people what you think. I love playing pranks on people. Like, I mean, just anything to do with people. And I feel like the more I'm around people, the more ideas get generated. What doesn't work for me is like sitting in in an office trying to figure it out, or like having endless Zoom calls, because everyone's posturing, whatever. Like, it's actually like, let's just get out there and mess with it. Like, for instance, when I launched the Enough bracelet, what I did was I just started giving them to people, and saying, look, like, I really struggled with not feeling enough and for many years. And this has been like a daily reminder for me. And I'd just love for you to have one and just see what happens. Or ask people, like, who in your life helps you really feel enough? And they start opening up. My mom. Okay, here's one for you, and go give one to your mom. So like, and then we had all these ideas about that. And then that leads to, well, what if every person that receives one now has a little code on the packaging where they can scan it and send one to someone else?
Oh, that's cool.
So what a great marketing idea, right? Like, everyone that wears a bracelet is also a giver of a bracelet. And now it just goes on forever. But that wouldn't have come had I not been like on the street, like passing out bracelets, talking to people.
It's such a good point, because I think in this age of AI, everybody's really worried about their job and what's going to happen. And will somebody take this away from me?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think lasts is something you talk about a lot, which is really taste and creativity. Right?
Yes.
And so, like, you're obviously a guy with taste. You're like cool dressed. Yeah, you got all this stuff. Tom's was like, one of the first cool shoe companies I remember.
Thank you.
And so I guess my question for you there is, like, does everybody have taste? Can you develop taste as an entrepreneur? Can you hire people with taste?
I definitely think you can hire people with taste. Like, I feel like when I'm meeting with someone, I kind of know if they've got it or they don't.
How can you tell?
Just their personal style choices, their attention to details, their Instagram. I mean, as silly as that sounds, like, even to that, to some degree, I mean, it's gotten a little bit harder because everyone's so hyper focused and everyone kind of follows what everyone else is doing. But originally, early day Instagram, like back when I was running Tom's, 10 plus years ago, Instagram was a great way to see, like, when we were hiring people, like, because it's interesting. Like, they say, like, if you really want to know someone, look at their camera roll. It's like, what are they actually taking pictures of? And if they're taking pictures of like cool architecture or like a really cool restaurant or whatever, even if they're not posting it, it's like, that's how you can kind of see what are someone thinking about, And I think a lot of taste is also about curiosity. Like, taste, I don't necessarily think, actually, I would change this. I care more about someone having a sense of style than taste. And I don't care if it's my style or not.
Yeah.
Like, they could be hardcore cowboy. Great. But if they lean into it and like that's them, I respect that, or they're really into, vintage cameras and like that's their thing. And they've got this camera and they tell you exactly about it and why they had this leather strap and what this viewfinder does. Like, that's a sense of style. Whereas taste can be a little bit kind of like following whatever's cool in the moment. But I'm more interested in style because that tells me independent thinking. That tells me curiosity. That tells me confidence. So they don't care if everyone else has their style, So yeah, I think that's something that's a little bit more interesting to look at when you're looking to hire someone. Because if someone has a specific sense of style, I think that can be applied to other styles. So like, if they're very specific in their personal style, then they can figure out like what is the right style of how we want to, merchandise or stack these bracelets.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually talking to David, my podcast producer, because I was like, I gotta get a little bit more swag. Like, I was like too serious, because I'm ex-finance, and he is known for, hopefully I can say this publicly, sometimes you'll paint your nails. Now the internet knows.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And
I painted my nails before.
See, I was like, David, I don't know about that. I was like, I don't know if that's and he was like, listen, bud, you gotta get cool. You gotta get on my level.
I painted the reason I did it is for years I was trying to stop biting my fingernails.
Okay, that's reasonable.
And so I thought if I paint them pink and green and all these random colors, then it like brings like a conscious attention to them. And if I have attention to them, I'm not going to want to hurt them.
Yeah. Did it work?
That didn't really work as well. but it did make my kids think I was like super embarrassing, which ultimately that's why I stopped doing it, because my daughter thought it was cool when she was like 4 and 5 and we went to get manicures. Now that she's 8, it's like if I painted nails, I'm not invited to any school assemblies.
We're talking about all these incredible things you do with business and these big businesses you've started, but there are a bunch of businesses nobody, I don't think, knows that you started. And so I want to talk about them in a couple different ways. One, I want to talk about Easy Laundry, which you've been on.
First business.
Yeah. Tell me about the business. How much money did you start it with and what happened?
$500. I tore my Achilles tendon.
Oof.
I was a tennis player in college. I was on crutches. So all of a sudden, I couldn't carry my laundry to the laundry facility, which is in the bottom of the dormitory. So my laundry is piling up. I can't carry them down. My roommate's kind of giving me a hard time. We go home for Thanksgiving. His dad was an entrepreneur. I didn't know what the word entrepreneur was at this point, right?
Yeah.
My dad's a doctor. My grandfather's a doctor. My uncle's a doctor. My aunt's a nurse. Like, my whole family's medical. And his dad, we were talking about the fact that I couldn't do my laundry. And he said, well, you should just have someone, come and pick it up. And I was like, I looked in the yellow pages, and this is how old I am, right? So I looked in the yellow pages.
Which, by the way, was a directory of listings like the internet back in the day.
Yeah.
Remember that?
For anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's basically, imagine if Google was printed.
But literally.
But local. Yeah, local. So anyways, I told him, I was like, I looked in the yellow pages. There's no fucking people to pick up my laundry. No one will do it. He's like, that sounds like a business opportunity. I'm like, a what? He's like, because I'm a jock. I'm just a pure tennis player. That's all I do. And he's like, I think you guys should start a laundry business.
Oh.
And I was like, he's like, yeah, people would. I went to a school, SMU in Dallas, a lot of rich kids.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I think you charge a lot of money for this.
Great.
So literally, we go back, we buy a FedEx truck for $500. An old, literally doesn't work. We had to get the engine replaced, but like the shell of an old FedEx truck at like a junkyard, $500. We paint on the side EZ Laundry, red and blue, and we decide to start going around to fraternities and sororities and like pitching our services. Now, I've never even done my own laundry. I grew up very sheltered. My mom was like Miss Homemaker. So like, I'm like now figuring out how to like hire people to do laundry in the middle of the night at these places. And we just figured it out. It's amazing. I was like 17, 18 years old.
How'd you sell it?
It sucks doing your laundry. And so, if you pay us this, we'll come pick it up every week. But here's the whole thing. And this is and I really hope if someone takes from this podcast, this is like such one of my first most important lessons of marketing. So we had this great service for, I don't know how much it was, like say $20 a week. We'll do all your laundry for you. Okay. No one signs up. I don't think we had one customer. We went to fraternities, sororities. First off, the sororities are like, we're not giving you our panties, Jake. Like, this is the last thing we're doing. They all knew me.
They're like, not this way.
They're like, yeah, exactly. Not this way. But so the sororities are like, this is just no way. And then the guys are like, what are you doing? Like, why are you playing golf or goofing around and drinking beer? Like, you're doing people's laundry. Like, just the kids who needed it weren't the customers. But who was a customer? Their parents. And the parents who were the most the customer was the incoming freshman. So we sold no laundry services for a semester. We go home a summer. We're thinking about basically quitting. It's just not working. And then we get a booth at orientation for the next year. In 3 days, we sold $100,000 worth of laundry services. Because the parents assumed when they got there, you buy the books, you sign up for the laundry, you get the meal plan. Boom. Everyone signed up. They even questioned the price. It was nuts. I dropped out of college and never went back because of this moment of my life.
Because of laundry.
Yeah. It was the craziest fucking thing. Like literally we just had the right pitch to the right customer. So sometimes you have the best idea. You're just selling the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the kids, even though the kids are the ones who are benefiting from, I don't know why. They weren't the ones that were thinking they wanted to spend $20 on it when they only have so much money for beer or whatever. But their parents were thinking, my kid has maybe never done their own laundry, or if they have, they don't do a great job. And I just bought the books for, $900. Might as well spend $500 a semester to make sure they don't ruin their clothes. And boom, $100,000 in sales, 3 days. Next day, I call my dad, drop out of college, never go back.
That's so smart. Well, it's true because these days I feel like people overcomplicate marketing so much.
Yeah.
They're like the demographic, the avatar, the analysis.
Hate marketing.
Right.
People hate when I say that too. I just made some real enemies already. I know. I put this on Instagram the other day, and like 4 people that worked for me in marketing at Tom's reached out. I'm like, really? Really?
Like, I hate you
After
in
I helped
particular.
build a $600 million business, you hate marketing? Come on.
But it's true because
I
it's like,
just don't like the formal concept of marketing. I think when you're trying to like concoct a way to convince or manipulate someone to buy something, this is not what I'm about. Like, it's like, no, like we were giving something great. We just, once again, right place, right time, right? Goes back to the chair. Like the chair, if we get the right people to sit in it in an environment where a lot of people see their amazing kind of remarkable experience, it'll spread like wildfire.
what do you call that? Like, have you named that? Is that like trigger point marketing? Is it like, Because I think that's a really useful framework for people to think, as opposed to, I spend X percentage of my revenue on PPC with Zuckerberg,
I think it's like showing the utility. I mean, even with the Enough bracelet, what's been really fun is, and I know I keep referencing it, and eventually we'll have to talk about it, but
100%.
but the thing is
Talk
like,
about it now.
It's really about the utility of like, so it's not even the fashion of it, or it's not even like that will raise a bunch of money for mental health charities. It's like, what does this actually do for someone? And so, so I've just launched this, and it came from my own journey. After I sold Tom's, I got super depressed. And actually, even before I sold Tom's, I started to get depressed. But it got much worse when I sold it, because I thought, okay, once I sold it, I have all this money, all this freedom. I could live in the mountains. I'm going to be so happy. And then I wasn't. And then I was like, oh, shit. Now what do I do? Like, I built like what I think is the perfect company. I gave 100 million children shoes. Like, I made more money than I ever could imagine.
You're friends with all the celebrities.
Everyone is, every single thing. I mean, covers of every magazine for a while.
Yeah.
And I felt empty, and I felt like I didn't really know what the second half of my life would be like. And the depression got worse and worse over 7 years, as we talked about. It got really, really bad a couple years ago. And in part of my healing journey, my therapist really helped me see that underneath all of it was this fear, this belief that I'm not enough. And it started when I was young, and I tried to feel enough by winning tennis matches. Then I tried to feel enough by starting businesses, then starting a business that would help people. But no matter what I did, no matter how much success I had, I just never felt that I was enough. And then after I did everything that the world tells you will make you feel enough, and I still didn't feel enough, that's when the depression, because it was like I didn't know where else to turn, which ultimately forced me to go inward and learn me and help me really realize and heal this idea that I'm enough, you're enough, we're all enough. But our culture lies to us all the time and tells us we're not enough. And if in social media is great, it's showing you and making you feel comparison to everyone else and how you're not enough. And so I decided, after I started feeling better about a year ago, that I wanted to help people feel enough. And my best friend told me to make a bracelet, because he's like, I have all these tattoos, right? So they all have these different sayings. Like, one says, be present. One says, do the work, speak the truth, enjoy the ride, carpe diem. And so he's like, instead of getting an I am enough tattoo, which I can see that's what you're getting ready to do, he's like, most people aren't going to get that tattoo. So why don't you create something that everyone can participate in? And you like bracelets, why don't you make a bracelet? So went to India, got these bracelets. They're handmade by women in India. And the idea is, it's just a daily reminder, just to look down and kind of be like, I'm enough. I've always been enough. And like, fuck everyone that tells me that I'm not enough. Because so much of that pressure is coming from all around us. And when you feel enough, you have so much peace, because then you can actually just be, and you can be present, and you can be connected. And so the utility of this for me is, that it helps remind me. But the utility of this for someone else could be different. So for instance, 100% of the profits from Enough goes to mental health organizations. So a lot of people I know that are wearing the bracelet now are wearing it because just they want to raise money for mental health. The same way like the Live Strong bracelet raised money for cancer, right? They're like, no, I know someone that struggled. Maybe they lost someone to suicide. And they're like, I'm going to wear this in honor of them or to raise money. And that's why they wear it. But we're giving the utility. And so, yes, I talk to my story and I share other people's enough stories, but also I show that like there's utility to this. And then the other thing, which at the end I'm going to give you one, is I'll show you right now, a little teaser, is we only sell them in pairs. Yeah. So when you buy one for yourself or you're given one, you get to wear the first one, but then you get to think, who in your life do you want to give the second one to? And so that's utility. So in terms of this, I would call it utility marketing. Like, I really think that's the thing, is like, what utility does the Enough bracelet do for people besides raise money for charity? What utility does the pivot chair do for someone who's sitting all day, who might have back pain and who wants to live a more active life? What utility did the laundry business do? For those parents, the utility wasn't even the clean clothes. Utility was the peace of mind we gave them.
It's so true.
So think about utility.
Speaking of insane marketing ideas, did I ever tell you one of my favorites? I actually started my entire business with a newsletter. Literally sending emails built my entire business from 0 to 9 figures in 4 years, which is wild. So if I could recommend you one thing, it would be to start a newsletter. Write about anything in the world that you're curious about, your business, your customers, your ideas. And my friend Tim Ferriss is on Beehive, and he writes an email each Friday literally only about his 5 favorite things. I actually switched all of my newsletters to Beehive because I wanted to grow. And so they help me see where my audience comes from, who reads, how to send stupid, simple, but like beautiful emails. And then the growth tools are all totally built in, which works for me. So it recommends my newsletter in front of other people's audiences. So I'm finding readers I never even would have reached. Now, I'm obsessed with this team. The founder, Tyler, is literally the most relentless, mission-driven founder. Just like Blake, actually. He's the most relentless one I've ever worked with. It's fascinating to watch their team. They ship product and features and solve every issue that I have come up. In fact, these little wizards just spun up a new landing page for me in 2 days because my other one was terrible. So if you want to share your ideas with the world and make money on it, go to beehive.com/Cody and use code Cody30. You'll get 30% off 3 months. That's beehive.com/Cody for code Cody30. Also, drop your newsletters on Beehive when you start them in the comments. I want to see what you guys are writing. I'm looking for new ideas and brilliant people, and I'm hoping more people like you get into this game of newsletters because it very simply changed my entire life. Again, that's Beehive with 2 E's, 2 I's, no third E. What, you guys will figure this out. You'll remember Beehive, won't you?
You know what we should do? If somebody's listening right now and you have your business, but you don't have your utility marketing, why don't you comment for us? And I'll pick one and send it to you.
Deal.
And then we can give them a response.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sick.
I love making videos.
Okay.
I tell my team all the time. It's like, you want to get a hold of someone? Just let me make a video. Like the other day, it's so funny. Our PR person was trying, when we were launching Enough, you know, he was like talking about how we want to launch it. And then Gayle King came up. And I was like, I was on the CBS show with Gayle King like a decade ago. Let me just make a video. And he's like, I'm like, trust me. Hey, Gayle, it's Blake. 10 years ago, you helped me launch Tom's. I'm launching Enough. I would love to come on the show. What do you think? Sure enough, we launched it with Gayle King. Yeah. Like sometimes the simplest thing is just make the video, ask the person to buy it. Like, I mean, just like it's simple things.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely don't ask enough. That is for sure. Yeah. And I think.
Can I say something to that?
I would love that.
No, because this is something that I feel so grateful for in my life right now. So when I was building Tom's, you talked about celebrities involved. We had a lot of celebrities, a lot of people supporting Tom's. But I felt so much pressure whenever I would go to a meeting or pitch someone like, will you wear our shoes or whatever, because my personal identity was tied to whether they said yes or no. So every rejection, which you're going to get a lot of rejections as an entrepreneur, was like personally painful. So it caused me stress, anxiety, all these things. Now, because I really do feel I'm enough, whether you like the bracelet, whether they like the bracelet, whether anyone likes the bracelet, I know that there's someone that this is really going to reach and is going to touch them, that now I have no problem asking anyone anything, because if they say no, it's no big deal, because it's not my personal identity as whether they like it or they say yes or whatever. And so that's been so fun for me, because now as I'm going out to different, Kid Cudi is one of my partners. I cold called him.
No big deal. That's wild.
Cold called him. I mean, literally, I, had a friend that knew his manager, and I had read about how he had really struggled with mental health, had suicidal ideation, like a lot of the same shit that I went through. And he just seemed like a real, genuine guy. And so I talked to her, and she's like, I can get it in front of him. She got in front of him. A day later, he's like, hey, can I do a Zoom with Blake? All of a sudden, I'm Zooming with Kid Cudi. And then a week later, he's one of our founding partners of Enough.
Yeah, that's
But if he would have said no, I wouldn't even thought 10 seconds about it. I would have been on to the next.
Well, you know what else is cool? I just learned this. You can go to IMDb, sign up for their premium thing, and see every single famous person's agent.
Yeah, I think they hate this. Yes.
Yeah, they're going to delete this part. Yeah, whatever. That's your job. That's why you get paid the 10 to 20%. Deal with it.
Exactly.
But I think the cool part is, and what I hope people take away is that even though you've had this huge career and you've built all these big businesses, these are actually little micro things that anybody in the world could do.
Oh.
Because, how many times do you think you've been rejected? Your life?
Just with Enough. I'm not going to put some celebrities and athletes on
a blast
or their agents, but you can think of any mental health any celebrity that has had a mental health challenge that has talked public about it, or any Olympic athlete that has a huge platform about mental health. I have cold called every single one of them now. And I only have 6 founding partners. There's hundreds of them. So that means that I'm still waiting to hear back from agents of hundreds of these people who say mental health is the most important thing in their life. And I'm saying, you can help us raise tens of millions of dollars by just wearing the damn bracelet. Nothing.
You want to call one of them out publicly? That is, but I think that's the game.
Yeah.
So I think,
you know what I'd like to do? I'm going to give you a list. And in the show notes, because I don't want to call them out, but I'm going to say, this is my top dream 30 people to be ambassadors of Enough. So if anyone is watching or knows their manager or knows them, because all these people, it's not like I'm asking them to do something they're not already doing.
Yeah.
They're already saying, I really care about mental health. I got through this. I want to help other people. So in the show notes, I'm going to give you my list of my top 30. And hopefully someone can get us to one of them and we'll have a new founding partner.
I love that. That'll be huge. All right, let's go, YouTube. I like this. Okay, I also want to talk about you seem to have this, like, I don't care, fuck all these people, fuck whatever they think. But you have had numerous, like what my dad would call dark nights of the soul.
Yes.
Where you have like looked at the darkness in the face that I think all of us have felt, either just as a fucking human, but also as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be interesting. I don't know which one you want to share, but like, I'd love to hear about a night where you just head in hands didn't know what to do next, and then how you got through that. For maybe the person that's listening right now with their head in their hands.
Yeah. I mean, I think the scariest thing for me was when I started getting depressed and then it got worse and I started trying to do all these external things to, built the dream house, moved my family to Costa Rica, got divorced, got remarried, got divorced again. Like, I did a lot of things to mess up my life. And there was a time, and in doing that, I, had I didn't have as close a connection with my kids, and I then went to a psychiatrist who told me I was bipolar, and then I got put on all these meds, and I mean, like, my journey went from bad to worse to worse to worse. To 2 years ago, I started waking up at 3 a.m, and I wanted to kill myself. And it was so fucking scary because I knew logically I would never do that to my kids. Like, I knew, but I couldn't stop thinking, like, go to your boat that that you lived on when you started Tom's. That was your happy place. Do it there. They'll never find you. Someone else. I mean, like, that's the level of detail. And I was dealing with this every single day, and I was keeping it. I was so ashamed because, like, look, I have money. I have a wife at the time. I have kids. Who am I to want to leave this earth? And so I wasn't telling anyone. And the thing I did, the reason I'm bringing this up is it's the most important thing anyone can do who is suffering is tell your friends. Just like there's never judgment. I think mental health has had a lot of stigma. I think it's getting less and less, but just find at least one person today to be like, it's this bad, and don't hold anything back. Like, literally be like, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm planning. Because I believe what happens with people who become suicidal, or at least for me, my experience and others I've talked to and some that I've lost, is that it's like the brain's broken. I mean, literally, it's no different than like a huge car accident, but it's invisible to everyone. And so think about it, like, how are you ever going to go to the hospital? How are you ever going to get the surgery? How are you ever going to get the PT if people don't see you mangled on the street? But if you're in that dark of a place, your brain is mangled. The neurons are not firing because it is not normal for us not to want to live, and especially me, I had tons of friends, all these reasons. But the most important thing I did, and the most important thing anyone can do, is just reach out for help. And yes, there's great crisis text signs, and there's all this mental health. Project Healthy Minds is one of my amazing partners with Enough. They have all these resources on their website. But I still think the most important thing is tell someone really close to you. I told my friends. I told my mom. Now, I hated that I was putting this on my mom, but I was also like, I just need to get through the next 6 months. And over time, they helped me, make some very important decisions in my life, help me get off all the pharmaceuticals, help me go to a treatment facility. I mean, my journey really was largely supported by the people that I shared. And also it's something about just talking about it, kind of takes the pressure away from it. It takes a little of the energy out of it.
So were you falsely diagnosed bipolar?
I think so. I mean, some people might. Who knows? Who knows? This is one of my favorite tattoos. So if you can see this one, this is my,
Who knows?
this is my partner in Tom's. Okay. Right. And so for those who are just listening, I remember not everyone's watching this, then maybe we'll post a picture of this. But this is Alejo. He started Tom's with me.
And is he wearing a beret?
What's that?
Is he wearing a beret?
Well, all these Argentine gauchos wear this hat. It's like a gaucho hat.
Yeah.
But anyways, he, in a very funny way, I won't tell the whole story because it'll take another half an hour, but he basically spoke for 20 minutes with certainty about all the things in his life that he saw through this vision and this whole thing after some psychedelics. And then he looked at me and goes, but who knows?
Is he Argentinian?
Yeah.
That is a very Argentinian response.
And the thing is, the reason I tattooed it on my forearm is I think it's like it's literally like the Buddha talking to me. It was like so smart because it's like, we don't know. I don't know why I got depressed, but I know that it led to my next purpose. You know, I don't know why I was in this relationship, but it led to me having kids, you know, like who knows if it's good or bad, you know? And so for me, I don't know. I really look at life with just a marvel now, and to not be, and that's what goes for people's journeys. Like someone difficult in your life, or maybe someone's not treating you well or whatever, like who knows why.
Do you think it's hard to be in a relationship with a founder?
I think it's hard to be in a relationship with me.
Do you?
Maybe not so anymore. I think at different periods of my life it was. I mean, I think it was very hard to be in a relationship with me when I was building and growing Tom's, because it was my first love, you know? I mean, it really was. I mean, there's just, you know, we were traveling around the world. We were giving shoes to kids. I was getting the external validation that someone who never feels enough needed. So I was getting it constantly, you know? And so, you know, it's hard to be in a relationship because in a relationship, you mess up, you forget to take the garbage out, you're late for dinner. Like, you're not exactly getting external validation every time you come home. But if you're getting it outside as a founder, especially if you have success, it's really hard. But then the interesting thing now is I'm in an incredible relationship with an amazing woman, and you know, she's been part of the whole Enough, you know, building All Enough, and it's going great. So I think a lot of it is I wouldn't say it's a founder. I'd say maybe first-time founder, you know, I don't know. But I do think that there are sacrifices, but I think the person knows that going in, and they're either in for that ride or they're not. And that's why you got to make sure that you have the same vision for, you know, what you're doing. Because right now, helping people feel enough and raising money for mental health is, outside of my kids, like the most important thing going on. And if I was with someone that didn't also share that passion, it probably wouldn't work out very well.
So now when you get into a relationship, do you set it up different? Like,
I think I just got I think God threw me a bone on this one. I mean,
you didn't
she's so
sit down
amazing.
and say,
just like,
is she here? She listening?
She is here.
Oh yeah.
Where is
Hopefully,
she?
no, you're doing this and she's not even listening. We'll have to send it to her later.
Yeah, that's how independent she is. She's just like, I'm doing my thing.
Like,
you're doing your thing.
No, but I'm curious. Like, I think we have a lot of people who ask questions about relationships.
Yeah.
My husband and I.
No, I like it.
together.
I've watched some of your videos on Instagram about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm always like, I have no fucking idea. Talk to me when I'm 80.
Yeah,
who knows, right?
Yeah,
I have
who
no idea.
knows?
Who knows? But I was curious, like, for entrepreneurs or somebody going into a relationship or trying to find their person.
Yeah.
Like, what would you fess up with somebody that you were in a relationship with now? What questions would you ask, you know, the person?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing is just being radically honest about what your priorities are. You know, the hard thing is, especially for someone who didn't feel enough, because that is that you kind of tell people what they want to hear so they'll love you, right? Versus like who you really are and what you're really about. And I think so I was kind of doomed, and I think my romantic partners were doomed because I never felt that I was enough. So in a sense, I was looking for them to tell me that I'm enough or to fill this hole that only I can fill, right? And so maybe I'm not leading with how important my business is or my purpose is because I want to say whatever it takes so that they're going to tell me I'm enough. Once I healed this, then I was able to, I think, attract a relationship and be really honest about, hey, my kids are my number one priority right now. I spend half my time with them. Next to that, I am on a mission to literally change the world's mental health. Like, I want to raise more money for mental health through Enough than anyone in the history of the world. Like, I'm not like, that's how big of a goal I have. And that's going to require me to go on a bunch of podcasts, to travel the world, to do speaking, to do all these things. And so most of our days are going to be living in a suitcase. And when I'm not in a suitcase, I want to surf. And I met a woman from Hawaii that surfs.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah. But it was like very clear, like when I'm not doing that, I really want to be surfing. And if you really like the idea of either surfing or being in a beach town and also traveling around the world on this crazy, enough ride, then great. And
that's such a good
but
point.
it was so much easier to be clear and honest because I wasn't looking for that external validation anymore. I was getting it from myself. I was really believing I am enough, whether this woman is excited about being on this ride with me or not. And then therefore, I also attracted someone who they felt they were enough. And so they were able to be honest about what's important to them and what their needs are. And so I think it's hard. Being with a founder, being with an entrepreneur is not for everyone. But I also think it's really hard if you struggle with what I've struggled with and you're a founder to not really kind of sell a vision of a life that's really not what you want.
Yeah. Well,
that's also what causes depression. I mean, I'm convinced that one of the largest causes of depression is just not living in integrity with yourself. For so many years, I was living the life that I thought everyone else wanted me to live. And I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. And I think that's what catches up to us is we make all these little compromises. Largely, I did it so that I would receive love. And then you wake up and you're living a whole compromised life. And that you don't want to live. And that's where your soul is like, well, I'm going to get depressed and feel horrible until you make major decisions to get back in alignment. And then you get back in alignment and everything feels at peace again.
That's so true. I also think the universe doesn't give you things when you're unclear.
Yeah.
So, if you're like, no, I'll take whatever love I can get, that's not actually what you mean, then things go sideways. Yeah. And so it's so important. Even the way you set goals is really interesting to listen to. Because you're like, I wanted this woman that here are these things that are really important to me. And so they can decide one way or the other. And the way you set goals, my husband and I were talking the other day about how we were looking at like the greatest men of all time. If you look throughout history, and not
like
one
the best looking.
Yeah, exactly.
You and your husband sitting around. I think he's hot.
Chris would not like that. He would not be interested in that. He's like you. He's an ex-Navy SEAL surfer.
Okay.
But so he's a dude's dude. But we were like, none of these men have actually achieved their goals fully. Mm-hmm. Like, if you go to Napoleon, if you look back, throughout history, and you look at the biggest leaders in the world, they never achieved their goal. And yours is interesting because your goal was not, well, I want to sell 1 million bracelets. It's, I want to do more for mental health than anybody's ever done. I want to raise more money than ever. Do you think about goals a specific way? Is there like a right way or a wrong way to set goals for Blake?
I would definitely now. I'm glad you brought this up. So in the same sense, I'll say, I hope that these bracelets, every person on the planet wears one and we raise more money than anyone in the history of mental health. And if I just help one dad tell his teenage daughter that she's enough, and read the poem that's in there to her, and that creates a tighter bond, we've had success. Like I literally, both goals, the dad-daughter one's more important. And that sounds like a great thing to say on a podcast or in a press thing or whatever, but I actually believe it. And the thing is already, we've only been doing this for like 2 weeks now. We've gotten the most incredible stories of, teenage girls giving it to each other, and it's like their new friendship bracelet. One had been really struggling with depression. She's like, hey, I want you to know I always got you and you are enough. Or I did hear about this dad and daughter. I heard about this son that gave it to his dad who said, I recognize that my dad's been depressed probably for like most of my adult life. He's a guy in his 30s. He's like, but I never knew how to ask him about it or talk to him. And I gave him the bracelet and it opened up a whole conversation. And now my dad's going to therapy. Like, I mean, it's like, so when I say goals, I believe you can set goals that are, not mutually exclusive. Like, I hope that this becomes huge, but if it doesn't, even if we touch a few people and create some interesting conversations and important healing, we've had success. I think there's been talk about like you set a goal and then you hold on to it very lightly. That's like, so you don't have the pressure of the goal. Like goals are great because I do believe what you put out into the universe is often what you get back. So if you don't, like you said, if you don't tell the universe what you want, how the hell are you going to get it? How's it going to give it to you? And if you put pressure of like, oh, I'm only going to feel this project was successful if we raise $100 million, well, that's just a silly thing. But a lot of people do that, and a lot of founders do that. I mean, they set goals financially, like, oh, I need to sell my company for 40 million or 50 million, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. But really, the ones that build the great businesses are 100% focused on something that is not necessarily measurable and more cultural.
Big goals loosely held.
Yeah,
I love
big
that.
goals loosely held.
So good. Also, I think, I think about that a lot with everything we do. And it's one of my favorite things about the businesses you've built before. But, we started the beginning of the podcast with me saying, I try to always think about like one person specifically who listens to this. Because if you think about it, you hold something precious in your hands when you're taking somebody's attention. That's their life. Right? That's lifespan. That's very precious. We don't get very many of those. No. And so if you imagine that we get millions of views a month across all the social channels, what a travesty if you and I don't give them something really worth spending their life on. Like that would hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I remember like we haven't had very many, but we had 2 podcasts we had to kill because I was like, I got stuff out of it. Thank you so much for coming. But like 1 million hours on this, it's not enough. It's not good enough. And so I think one other thing I want to talk about, which is like why we put up the tree. We were struggling beforehand with this. If you guys are watching us, you're like, why is there this giant tree that looks so beautiful behind us? And we're struggling with what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. And
then you told a story about wisdom and the Buddha that this reminded you of.
Yeah.
Will you tell us that story?
Yeah. So when I started Tom's, we grew beyond shoes into eyewear. We started selling sunglasses. And then we made a deal where we said, okay, if you buy a pair of our sunglasses, we'll pay for a cataract surgery to someone who's blind. We found out that the greatest cataract surgeons in the world are at this hospital in India, in Lundini. And we decided to go there and watch people get their eyesight back. I mean, it was literally one of the greatest experiences of my life. I mean, literally, I saw grandparents that had never seen their grandkids and see them for the first time because of a surgery that someone got because someone bought a pair of sunglasses on toms.com or something. I mean, it's crazy.
And how much does that surgery cost then?
It cost like $16 back then. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, so with 1 pair of shoes, you're able to cure eyesight.
Well, no, with eyewear. We just saw eyewear for $115.
That makes sense.
And $16 of it went to paying the surgery. So anyway, we go to Lundini, and they didn't tell me this until we got there, but also Lundini is the birthplace of the Buddha. And I looked over, and they're like, that's the tree. Now, whether that was a tree or not, who knows? But it was a tree that looks just like this. And I have a photo. I have to find it. Probably we can get it for the show, of me sitting underneath the tree. And I remember sitting there, and this was before I got depressed. This was like when Tom's was really taking off. I was in my flow. I was very connected to it for all the right reasons. I wasn't putting all the external pressure. And I just remember thinking, like, if this is it, if there's nothing else that happens with this idea, like, and I'd just seen some eye surgeries, I was like, that's all that matters. And I think that's like the way I want to live my life each day, each week, each month, going back to goals. Like at the end of the day, I kind of be like, okay, if that's the last one, I'm okay with it, And after the week or after the month, if that's it, I'm okay with it. Because that's, again, about living in alignment, And for me, having gone through such a scary time where for days I thought it was going to end very soon, I just feel like I have like this, they say new lease on life. Like I feel like I get this like second chance. And so that's why I'm spending all my time trying to help others not feel the way I felt and really connect people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's all we have are our relationships and our own mental health. Because if we don't have mental health, it doesn't matter what physical health you have.
Yeah. So what do you do now? Like if you're feeling down, not even going all the way back, but if you're feeling down or you want to feel re-inspired, what do you turn to? What activities, what books, what readings, what quotes?
So, okay, this is silly, but one of the things I'm doing right now, and it's not silly, it's just I don't know how people respond to this. Okay?
I like this.
Yeah, I know you're going to like this. So, about 2 months ago, I started using AI therapy. Now, a lot of people ask ChatGPT mental health stuff, but there's this app called Sonia, Sonia.ai, and I met the founder at a mental health conference. And he was giving a presentation and explaining how it works and how it's, built on the LLMs, but they've basically taken, every therapist, every case study, every book ever written, put it in there and tried to design. And they call it emotional support. I think for legal reasons, they call it emotional support instead of AI therapy, but it's AI therapy. And so anyways, I was like, well, I've done a lot of therapy. I mean, if anyone's done therapy, I've done a lot of therapy. And one of the things that's really a bummer with therapy is if I have a panic attack, it doesn't happen at 2:00 on a Thursday, or 2:00 on a Thursday. It happens at 4 fucking in the morning. And my therapist, I don't care how much money you have, no therapist is answering your call at 4:00 in the morning. And so I was like, wow, because I still struggle with anxiety. I still have these issues that come up, and especially with like launches of new things and, just am I always thinking, am I being a good enough dad? And all these things. I wake up and I have stress about, oh my gosh, I didn't do this or that. And so now it's like, boom, it's right there at 4 in the morning. And I don't have to do a whole hour session. I could do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
And it works?
It works unbelievable.
So what happens if you go, I'm panicking?
Yeah. So literally, you go in and you get to choose, like I like to be talked to, like I like a therapist that is like really direct, or I like one that's more like light, or one this. And like you kind of fine tune it. It takes like 10 minutes. And then, of course, it has memory, so it never forgets anything. And you tell them what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like I started off saying, like, this is my core wound. I never felt that I was enough. And so this is what I've done. This is what helped me. I had this mantra-based meditation. I do these things. And so I taught it that. And then I teach it, like, okay, one of my biggest sources of stress is this in my personal life, or this. And so it starts figuring all this out. And so then when I say I'm having a panic attack this morning, it knows what to check in about. Well, how did you sleep, for instance? One of the things that I have is like, I have a really high focus on sleep. And if I don't get good night's sleep, I can feel off. And it feels almost like if I ever have jet lag, it almost feels like depression. Like they kind of feel the same to me. And so it'll check in on my sleep. And then it'll be like, okay, well, like one of the things that we've recognized, like me and the therapist, it's so funny how it talks to you, is like that, you really have a trouble when things get too performative. So when you're having to out there sell or do too much press or too much of that, like that's the old Blake. And it will call it like we've talked enough where it's like, that's the Blake before all the growth. The new Blake likes connection. So are you having enough connection? And this week, what are you doing this week to have more connection?
That's great. So it doesn't just do what like ChatGPT does.
Oh, no,
just
no.
like, you're great. You're perfect.
No. It's like so specific. And then it will be, and then if I say, what I'm doing on Thursday this week to have more connection, I'm going to commit to, going on a run with my friend Pat. It'll send me a text message Thursday morning and say, hey, are you doing the run with Pat today?
Are we investing in this company? What's happening?
I want to. Literally, right now, I literally just working with the founders. One of the things I'm also trying to do a lot now is mentor young entrepreneurs, especially if they're building businesses that can help people with their mental health. And so when I met these guys, I was like, hey, I don't know. First off, I just wanted to try it myself, and then it was working so well. And then they know the Tom story, and then I presented at the mental health conference, and they're like, "Hey, can you help us some?" And so I've been mentoring them. So I might invest. We'll see. But who knows where this is going? I don't even know if it's going to be legal. But right now, it's free at Sonia.ai, so you can do it right now. It's legal and it's free. I don't know if it will be forever, but yeah.
What about
But that's really helping me, and I guess the point I bring that up is I think what helps me the most is to have a dependable tool, and every tool that works for someone else. So one of my friends who's a recovering alcoholic, still deals with a lot of anxiety, starts to get, out of sorts, cold plunge, or cold shower. That's his tool. Just boom. He won't even allow himself to call someone or talk to a therapist until he does that first. Right now, this Sonia thing is my tool. And, everyone has a tool. But I think that's the thing I would say is if someone's struggling, find a tool that can interrupt the rumination, the negative thinking, all that stuff. And so that's really a big tool for me. And then my other tool is my bracelet. I just have it. I wear it. I talk about it. I, give it out to people all the time. Tools are important.
It's a good point. It's a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, that's what we need. Because I think when we get out of sorts, when we start feeling negative thoughts, when we start ruminating, when we, it's all just a pattern. It's just our brain. It's just like the brain is sending, for 40-something years, my brain told me I wasn't enough. And so what I did for 40 days is I did a mantra-based meditation, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, where I simply just said, I'm enough. I've always been enough. And I'd laugh because it was so silly. And it felt stupid for the first couple of weeks. And then it started working. I started feeling it. But all I did was just change that pattern.
I love that. Yeah, I just had Tony Robbins on the podcast.
Oh, great. I love
met him.
We've met briefly once. We've never spent any time together. I want to have him on my podcast.
Oh, you should.
Because he talks a lot about feeling enough.
Oh, yeah. And he has one of, I think, like the most intense presences of anybody that I've met. And so I was at his house and we spent a good amount of time with him. And I remember like when he walked in the room, I was like, whoa, like that.
He's a big guy, right?
But we've had a lot of big, there's a lot of big guys. Yeah. But what really took me away is like that man is locked in. I was like, oh, fuck, he knows what's going on in here. He is like so locked in. Yeah. And then kind of similar to you, he was like, it was a lot of curiosity, which you seem to have the same thing. Yeah. Like, why are you this way? Why am I this way? And then once I figure it out, how do I put a tool in place to figure out the solution? Yeah. Which I think is really interesting. But he would be great for your podcast. Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, like now, it's so interesting to me that you could have ever been in this dark place because the way you come off is like so much joy to be, so much like, big, huge energy for life.
It's crazy.
And so I was wondering, like, today, what has you so excited? Obviously this, but like when you wake up in the morning, is it that you're going to go surf that day? Is it that you get to build again?
I think what has me most excited about life right now is service. It's just like I'm getting to help people again. I know right now, this podcast, there's 1,000% chance that there's someone listening who's really in a tough place. There's also probably people that are feeling stuck, feeling uninspired, feeling insecure. Like I felt those things. I mean, for years, I didn't have one business idea for 7 years. For 2 years, I was a shell of myself. My friends say literally they look in my eyes and there was no one there. I mean, I couldn't even raise my voice to this octave for 2 years. And so because I felt that way and it was so scary and it was so recent that I think I wake up now and I'm kind of like,
how do you engineer your life? Like, it almost seems like you've adventured your entire career. It's one of the things I struggle
Adventure?
with. Yeah.
I do. I always make time for adventure.
But so in my business, we were just talking about this. And I'm like, man, when I'm in my little entrepreneurship grind, it's kind of all I do. Yeah. Like, I'm so deep in it. And I talk to a lot of people who's the same. They're just like, they grind every single day. Yeah. And you seem like a type of person who has always integrated sort of the rest of life into it.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Two things. One is I really schedule joy. So I believe that like a lot of people hope for joy or awe or these big moments to come to them. Like I put it on the calendar the same way you have a board meeting. Like I'm like, for 1 week a month, I'm going surfing. Now you can't surf all day long. So I'll surf from 5 in the morning till 10, get my joy. I'll do Zoom calls from 10 to 4. And me and my lady will go for a walk on the beach. We'll have a nice dinner. We'll do, a sunset. And that's my day. Mm-hmm. And that is like as important as the press week in New York last week. And so I really, really schedule that. And that's, that's nice that I can go somewhere, say where there's surf or whatever. Not every person can do that. But what is that for you? Like, what is that joy? Is it taking guitar lessons? Is it learning something new on YouTube? Like, what is that thing? Because if you don't schedule that, then like, what's the purpose? What's the point? Because
do you do it every day too?
No, I wish. I mean, if I'm really, really like operating a 10 out of 10, then I'm like making sure I protect a couple hours, early in the morning to, usually it's physical activity or it's playing golf, like 9 holes at sunset, with my son or with my friends or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
but it's at least once a month. So it's like
once a month,
schedule joy.
I try to schedule a month. Now, do I always get a week? No, but I definitely get at least a 4 days. There's not a month that goes by that I don't have 4 days where I'm just like, see ya.
And do you always do something weird? Like going to India or like surf? It's not just like, it seems like
that's more my personality than I think what I would share. Like going back to how do we help the person who's listening to this and focusing on them. Like, yes, I do a lot of just crazy adventures because that's just always how I've been. Like, I've always been, racing cars or climbing mountains I like the adrenaline of those things. But also I think you can schedule this, if someone's just like, I love reading and I'm going to schedule 4 days where I go, it could be like you go camping. It could cost nothing. And I'm just going to sit and read the books that I've been wanting to read for 2 years, or I'm going to go and just like one thing I did that was, I guess it was a little bit out there, but very simple, was I hiked the Camino Trail for a week with Alejo this summer. So we just walked for a week. We didn't run.
I'm a big walker.
Yeah, we just walked. We got up, walked, ate, walked. Like it was the most boring thing I've ever done and one of the most profound because my whole nervous system reset and I was able to process the depression and all the things I went through and the pain I caused others and the pain others caused me. And I was able to forgive them and forgive myself. And I was like, man, this is better than any therapy retreat I've ever been to. And all I did for a week was walk.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I think it could be, I did that in Spain, but I could have done that, in Marin where I live,
Yeah.
So I think that
actually,
yeah,
I just looked up. This is so funny, but my hobby this year is literally more walking because I like thinking a lot while walking. Mm-hmm. But do you know that there are 52 trails in the U.S. where you can do more than a 7-day walk that are supposed to be seen as highly scenic?
Yeah.
And you can camp along them. So if you chat GPT it right now, anybody listening, totally free, maybe $12 to camp.
Yeah.
And then you can go for a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start walking all around the country and having beautiful ideas while you do it. And not being sedentary like your chair.
Exactly.
So that we can get all our steps
Sitting
in.
is the new smoking.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Walking episode.
Here's
BigDeal
the
podcast.
slogan I'm pitching. We're talking to the chair company. I'll see what you think as a business person. Really simple. Never still.
Oh, God, that's true. Plus, I'm into that. I don't like being still.
Yeah. So now when you're sitting, the other thing about the chair thing, not to make this all about that, but they're going to love this. This already got here. So they thought it was to help, with get people, not being still, help with the back pain, help with the, but what they found, like the biggest hack is people have ADHD. Because what happens, do you?
Totally.
So you know how like if you really focus on something, you kind of need to be doing something else.
Oh, totally.
You like to fidget, you like this, you doodle, you ring. Mm-hmm. So they've shown that you can really focus. Well, we've done all this research to show that by sitting in this chair, your body is just doing this kind of, you can barely see it, and it allows you to hyper focus on whatever you're doing. So I
sold.
Yeah, you're getting one for sure.
I'm totally sold.
And hopefully all your guests will be sitting in one.
Okay, so I want to leave the person listening here that just needs to listen to Blake today, your parting words. So there's that person out there, you have something to imbue to them. What comes to you first? What do you want to leave the listener?
I just think that what I want to say is that it will pass. No matter what you're going through, no matter how hard it is, it will get better. It always does if you just hang on. And you take the steps to do the things. So go out for the walk, reach out to a friend, journal for 30 seconds, not even 5 minutes, just 30 seconds of something that you're appreciative of. But no matter how hard it is, it will pass. I didn't think it was going to pass. I thought I was trapped. I thought I'd made too many mistakes. I had too much shame. And that's why I had such dark thoughts. But looking back now, I'm like, it was always going to pass. I just had to hold on. I just had to start doing one thing at a time. I just had McConaughey on my podcast. And he talks about one in a row. Just get one in a row today. And so that would be my advice is knowing or not even advice, just I want you to hear that it will pass and it will get better, but you got to do the work. You got to put it in.
Who would have thought? Least interesting thing about you is that you sold your company for $600 million. Least interesting. Thank you so much for being here today. I
got to give you a bracelet before we're done.
Oh, we're going to do it right now.
Absolutely.
I love this.
So here we go. So we take one out. This is for you. And it says, so you got to make sure I do this right. Yep. So open your palm.
Okay.
And for those who are listening, I'm putting enough bracelets.
Matches my outfit today. I didn't even wear green on purpose.
And
I love this.
I'm going to read you something. Okay. So this is a little poem. Do you know the poet NQ?
Mm-mm.
So he's an amazing poet, friend of mine. And I said, how do I share this with someone besides just giving it to him? If I really want them to feel this, then what can we say? So here it is. So Cody, I see you. The you behind the you, not for anything you've done or anything you're going to do. I don't stop to say it enough, but I believe in you. And if you could see yourself from my view, you'd believe it too. That's why I'm giving you the gift that I'm receiving too. A message to remind you when you're lost or feeling blue. A mantra to repeat when times are tough, because no matter who we are always enough. It's a silent prayer I'm sending for the world's mental health. I wear the symbol for myself and now as a bond to someone else. It's a blessing and a gentle push to never give up, because no matter who you are enough.
So good. Beautiful. Also, why you're a marketing legend. Blake, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people go to find you?
Weareenough.co is the website for Enough. And then I'm on Instagram at Blake Mycoskie, and the pivot chair, PVOT.
Yeah, we'll put all the links down below.
And the 30 people that I would love to be our ambassadors, I'm looking to your community to help me get to them.
I like it.
I love this idea.
And we'll ping somebody with your brilliant marketing ideas too and help them find it. Yes. What did we call it? We called it utility marketing.
Marketing.
We got a little trademark for Blake today.
Let's do 10 people.
Whoa.
Yeah, 10 people.
I love it.
10 people.
Okay.
Tell us what you need help with utility marketing. What are they going to comment?
So they're going to comment on YouTube. Basically, just tell us what your product is.
And then I'll just make them a video of my idea.
I love this idea. All right. You're the man. Blake,
thank you.
This was so great. Hi, and welcome back to the Big Deal podcast. I'm Codie Sanchez. If you want to be respected for your words to carry weight, then this episode is for you. I'm breaking down the communication techniques the top 1% use to get people leaning in, not tuning out. By the end, you'll know how to stop sounding like everyone else and start speaking like the leader people want to follow. So today, I want you to steal my confidence and respect. First, speak in headlines. Start with the point, not the preamble. I obsess on my first sentence. Why? Executives don't waste time on throat clearing or setting up a big runway before they get to the takeoff. By giving the headline first, you frame the conversation and make people lean in instead of tune out. This is also how you never have somebody repeat your idea to a group of people and be able to take credit for it again, right? When you speak decisively and you say something in front of a group, it would be ridiculous for somebody else to reframe your ideas and take them as your own. This is called decisive speech. Here's what that means. Clear, direct statements, limited hedging, and using few qualifiers or apologies. That's really signaling I am competent. Let's say you want to talk to someone for a few minutes. You're trying to get a few seconds with them, a boss, a coworker. I brought this up last week, and what I think we should do instead is probably talk about this a little bit more, or we could table it and talk about it later. Can I steal a few minutes? Is now a good time? Hey, can we talk about that? A good time for what? Why? Why do you need to steal my minutes? Where are they going? What you don't realize, most people sound like that. You instead will sound something like this. I have a problem that is leading to missed revenue. Can we discuss no longer than 5 minutes? Or, I found a problem. I have a solution. I need 30 seconds to get an okay for it. The formula is what? What's wrong? Why does the other person care? How long will you bother them? The real issue here is marketing. It's not moving fast enough. We need to replace these 2 hires. The budget is too low. If we do these 3 things, work in 24-hour cycles, spend 1 hour a day recruiting, increase the budget, we will win. That is how you get people to listen to you. Warmth and competence. It's not how smart, rich, or pretty you are. Respect is about how fast you can signal, I'm a friend, which is trust and warmth. And you can rely on me, competence. The faster you can signal those 2 things, the more people like you and respect you. I learned this from the #1 behavioral psychologist I know, Vanessa Van Edwards. There are warmth cues. That means like smiling, nodding, for instance. A fun one is the slow triple nod, which is like this. The other person speaks 67% longer. That's because it is a nonverbal way to say, I hear you, I see you, tell me more. If instead you go, three fast shakes like that, what is that signaling? Okay, moving along, I'm ready to go. Let's keep talking here about something else. You do 3 little nods, a pause, and that signals, hey, I'm warm. I want you to keep listening. Another warmth cue is a head tilt. So you could say, I have some news. Straight shoulders, no movement. I have some news. That is a competent way to do it, but not warmth. A warmth cue would be like, I have some news. What are the 2 things that change? Head tilt and a lift of the shoulders. Now, more competence cues for those of you who are listening, which is probably the most important thing you can do, is confident posture. So that's standing tall, shoulders back, occupying space, shows certainty, credibility. Not hands below the table, hands in lap, hands hidden. Instead, hands on the table or in the microphone, showing straight up and shoulders back. Another way to show competence, steepling of the fingers. I'm listening. I'm thinking about that. What do we think we could do there? It's not like this, though. That looks creepy. This is a classic gesture. What it basically means is, hey, I'm self-assured. Next, cut words, add weight. You want to use fewer words, but make them sharper. We'll double revenue in 12 months. Okay, that is better than we have a plan to increase revenue significantly over the next year. Like, what's significantly? When next year? We want numbers, data, and credentials. So when we mention certifications, awards, supporting ideas with numbers, it reinforces our expertise. So we don't have to be better or smarter. The numbers do that for us. Data plus brevity signals confidence, and it makes every word carry weight, which commands attention to us. So if I was a boss and I said, tell me what you're going to do about this problem. A bad example would be something like, Well, I think maybe what we should do next is try, new hiring processes, or maybe we could talk to, so-and-so about that person that they knew last week. I'm not really sure. Can I get back to you? Bad answer. A good answer is pause. My gut reaction, which allows you to back out of it later if you find a better reaction. My gut reaction is, first step, we go and we talk to this person. Second step, we write down the findings. Third step, we come back together in 24 hours for an assessment because I don't want to make too quick of a decision. What do you think? Great. You've basically non-committed just as much as the other person has, but you sound like you have authority, even while you're saying, I don't know, I got to talk to a couple of people. It'll probably take me a day or two, right? Instead, we're pausing, we're framing, and we're saying we're going to regroup at a date, time, and checking for understanding. Speak like you want to be heard. This falls into 3 categories. I call it the GET: gestures, eyes, tone. So you get heard. So let's talk about gestures first. Gestures need to be precise. Using clear, purposeful hand gestures like finger steepling indicates deep thinking and self-assurance. So we want to really use our hands in an intelligent way. Authoritative vocal tone, speaking with a lower pitch, projecting the voice, avoiding filter words like, like, signals competence and confidence. Narrowing your eyes briefly signals, I'm thinking about this. I'm really focusing on what you're saying. I've got active engagement and analysis. A bad example of a tone, especially for women, sounds like this. Hi, my name is Codie. I'm really excited to work here today. I have worked in marketing for the past 10 years. What am I doing there? Well, I'm getting an uptick at the end of each sentence. Very normal for women to do. Instead, what would I want to do? Hi, my name is Codie. I've been working in marketing for the past 10 years. I'm really excited about what we're going to do here next. I can still smile, I can still nod, but my tone is flat and a little bit lower than normal. If you hear me talk every single day, it probably sounds like, hey, what's going on? Hey guys, how are you? Like, God, I'm so excited to see you. This podcast is going to be so great. That's what I normally sound like. When I'm trying to be competent, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be 1 octave lower and I'm going to be a little bit flatter. When I'm talking to somebody, I'm not trying to be competent. My eyes are big. They're like, I'm curious. I want to know more about that. This face does not make you feel like I'm competent. This face does. So I am going to really focus in. I'm almost going to picture a pinprick of my attention going to that other person. It's signaling I'm listening, but you're going to have to prove to me what you're talking about. Next, master the pause. What to do. After delivering a key point, stop talking. This is where we let the silence work. Why? Pauses, they create gravity. They make your words echo longer and show you're comfortable owning the room without filling space. Let's try. Let's say you have something really hard to say to a group, and you need to say something like, we're not talking about the right things. I might say something like, I think we all know we're not talking about what we need to. Pause. Look around the room. Get in people's eyes. At this point, most people keep talking because they're worried that somebody is going to jump in. You don't have enough competence or authority for people to wait for you to pause dramatically. So how do you fake that authority if you don't have it? You go like this. I think we all know we are not talking about the right thing. Put up a finger. This is basically telling them non-verbally to wait. And if you see somebody jump in, you just push the finger out a little bit more intensely. This allows you to hold the frame. If somebody starts to speak, you shake it a little bit more formally. When I do this in my head, I like the count to 5 as an example. So I think we all know that we're not talking about what we need to. 1, 2, look around the room, 3, 4, 5. Uncomfortable. Then I give an example, then I release the finger, and I keep going. Try this in your next meeting. It will blow you away by how much more people will actually listen to what you have to say. Next, tell stories, not stats. Use a narrative. We almost lost that company because of one bad hire. Is much better than, well, turnover rose by 12% last year. Why? Humans follow stories, not spreadsheets. Stories are sticky. Numbers slide off. CEOs weave both, but stories always lead. Historically, we call this passing through parable. At my companies, I have a saying, which is, show me, don't tell me, which means that I want to hear the story, I want to see the data, and I want it backed by numbers. When you have those three, we can get to solutions. But I don't just want you to talk about it, I want you to show me. Let's say you're trying to get a friend to listen to you. You've talked to this person 1,000,000 times about something that they should do differently in their life, and they have never listened to you to date. I would put a few of these into effect. Let me tell you what a bad example sounds like. Well, you've dated this guy a few times. Do you really think it's going to go well if you keep dating him? Don't you think we've kind of learned our lesson here? Do we want to really date him again? What are we doing? Right? That's questions. You're not holding the frame. You're not pausing. What would a good example look like? Mary, I remember about 6 months ago, you called me in the middle of the night crying. You were despondent. I could barely understand what you were saying. You really couldn't speak because you were crying so hard. I thought maybe somebody had died, but that was the night that you called and told me that he cheated on you and that you would never speak to that man again. And now here we are, 6 months later, when the tears are dried and you're going back to him. Do you feel the difference between the two? One is yeah, well, you've already done this again. Are we going back? Whatever. The second, you will remember. So take a moment and become a storyteller. Over the past 90 days, we've grown by over 60,000 subscribers. Yay, which is crazy. And still, less than half of our viewers are subscribed. So if you could double check your subscribe below, that would be incredibly helpful for the show. You truly are a big deal to me. Let's jump back in. Next, use the 3-point rule. So what to do? Frame everything in threes. This one's super easy and super powerful, so use it wisely. If I wanted to get somebody to follow my framework on something, I might say, here's the opportunity, the risk, and the next step. I don't even have to say 1, 2, 3. I could just show it with my fingers. But I know that it will frame my brain a specific sequence that other people can remember. Why? The brain loves patterns. And we like patterns of 3. The Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. It feels complete, memorable, and persuasive without overwhelming people. Really easy to remember 3, hard to remember 4, very difficult to remember 5. And if you probably haven't noticed, I've been doing that a lot in this video. Anytime you can insert rules of 3 and what I call named and framed segments, your speech will be better. So let's say, for instance, somebody is doing something really stupid, and you want to tell them, wow, that's so stupid. And there are all these underlying reasons why that's so stupid, and we should never do that. Instead, you might say, let's get to first principles on this. Let's get to foundational principles on what we're talking about here. You're basically saying, can we take a step back to really see what's going on? Let's get to second and third order effects, which is a fancy way of saying, what are the repercussions of the actions? If we do that, what's going to happen next? I believe that what's happening right now is a lack of urgency bias. What you're really saying is, I think you guys are slow, really slow. But because we frame it in this fancier way, it's harder to push back on. Next, command the frame. Define the lens others see the conversation through. Example, somebody says something to you and they're like, we shouldn't spend that money. I don't want to. Instead of saying, no, we should spend that money. No, I disagree with you. You say, this isn't about money. It's about survival. This isn't about cost. It's about happiness. This isn't about money. It's about our family. What are you doing? Well, whoever controls the frame controls the debate. In communication, this means not letting somebody else take your frame. You never want to respond with that, not right. No, we're not going to do it that way. I didn't say that. Instead, you would say, that's a separate issue, Matt. Let's focus on the core problem. What you're basically saying is, I don't want to talk about that. I want to focus on this other issue. But you're doing it without ever having to debate and get into the, no, I disagree with you, which is really a childish way to try to communicate. The last part of this that's really important is the way you communicate when we are frame breaking. How people will not allow you to steal their frame is when you fake it. So be really careful about saying, let's focus on the core problem, Matt. It's not really that. This little side smirk here, this is an immediate signal of condescension. I don't like you. I think you're dumb. Or, Matt, that's not really the core issue here. What we're trying to do is something else. This is a fake smile and it's visceral. Like, do you guys feel it? Like, I'm so happy that we're hanging out. You're like, no, you're not. You hate me. Like, you don't even have to say anything. Instead, you need to either turn it off or turn it on. Fake. I'm so happy to be here. No, you're not. I can tell. I'm so happy to be here. I actually have no emotional difference right now between the two. I'm just committed to the bit, right? I'm so happy to be here. And if you can't be happy in the moment, then think about something that makes you happy and plaster that on your face instead. But be really careful with the feelings of condescension coming out on your face. Next, project calm certainty. People trust leaders who seem unshakable. I find certainty to be contagious. Even if you're still figuring things out behind the scenes, be the duck gliding above the water, even though underneath you are paddling like a crazy motherfucker. Now, this is very unpopular for the internet, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. There is no crying in business. Do not cry in meetings when things are going sideways. Do not believe the influencers that tell you that that's okay. Do not show weakness. From an emotional deregulation standpoint, it is not okay to cry. Now, if somebody dies, if you hurt yourself, perfectly fine. If you have something else in your life that just hurts in that moment, okay, of course. But you do not cry because you are frustrated like a small child at your inability to communicate properly in work settings. You allow somebody else to cry. You pass them the tissue. You say, hey, no problem, take your time. But that's not you, because that is not a 1% move ever. Every single leader that I have seen cry in business is not a leader for very long. Business does not allow for crying. You can hate me on the internet for this, but your bank account will love me. Next, name the elephant. Call out the obvious thing when no one wants to. So if you're sitting in a meeting, like I often am, and everybody's sort of talking around the issue, right? There's this big, hairy elephant in the middle of your meeting room. I want you to try out saying it. Guys, are we not hitting our sales numbers because our product isn't good enough yet? That's phase one. We're saying it as a question. We also use the word guys as an opener. It's like, I'm not saying it. It's a question. Guys means it's a question we all have, isn't it? If you have a stronger frame and more authority, you can say, we're not hitting our numbers because our product isn't good enough yet. Now, I did a couple really subtle cues there. I look to the side. I put up my shoulders. I do a little, all of that is a stage 2. And if you want the highest frame, you would say, we are not hitting our numbers because our product is not good enough yet. Straight to frame, serious, no side. Anytime you lift up, side smirk, all of that, warmth cue as opposed to competence cue. Now, leaders earn respect by voicing uncomfortable truths. It breaks tension and actually makes people believe in you more than anyone else in the room. You should really try it in a room where everybody else is doing the PC thing. If you can find that there is a truth that nobody is talking about, and especially if the truth maybe is on you, that's the ultimate. You know what I think the real problem is, guys? I think I made the wrong call on this. We should have done this. We did this instead. So I'm going to have this outcome. I'm going to take my burden of this. What else should we have done differently? If you are going to do this one, you better be right. And 2, you need to find your ally who already wants you to say the quiet part out loud, but maybe is scared to do it or really needs somebody else to do it. This is also where power dynamics come in. So you're going to need to understand who your allies are ahead of time. Often in meetings, this means that you talk about the meeting before the meeting to game plan. Never feel bad at thinking that top 1% communicators are born with it. That's not true. We prep. The way that you get to the top 1% is you prep more than the other 99% do. And finally, end with a command. Always finish with a clear action. Here's what happens next. By Friday, I want us to decide this. Why? Influence without direction, just noise. CEOs do not leave conversations open-ended. They move people to act. A little extra add-on for you guys. Ask dangerous questions. Lots of people ask safe questions. How's everyone feeling about this? How was your weekend? Instead, get a little sharper. What's the one risk that could kill this deal? Because real leaders don't just talk, they provoke thought. Questions like this make people take you seriously because they can tell you want the truths, not just to dodge. Sometimes the most authoritative thing you can do is say, I don't know, But I think we can find the answer to this question. And if we do, we will find the answer to everything. That is a hard question. Also, if you don't know if you are competent or warm leaning, let me give you a little piece of homework. Let's say you can't tell if you're going to become a top 1%er because you don't know what you need to lean into more. Go to your email. I learned this from Vanessa. See how many warm versus cold indicators you have. What does that mean? In an email, look at the words. Warm words are words that trigger oxytocin, the happiness drug. So that's like cheers, collaborate, learn, emojis, thank yous, exclamation points, smiley faces. Competent words are words like achieve, mastery, results, outcomes, data, charts, graphs. The truth is that best leaders have both. They use warmth and competence, and they use them like a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. But almost every person I've ever met has one side more dialed than the other. If you guys haven't noticed, I am high on competence. I actually am pretty low on warmth. I get serious, and when I'm serious about things, I have a very serious face. And so I kind of am thinking about things. I'm not smiling so much. I need to work on my warmth cues because people could be intimidated by me or scared of me, which I've heard. And so every single one of us is going to be somewhere on this spectrum. The top 1% is both aware and then they prepare.
Whenever the government says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, they're typically not. And I am talking about red, white, blue, purple, whatever the color they show up as. The only good government is one that is at a distance, allowing you to be able to continue to do the things you need to do on a daily basis, as opposed to mandating you do one thing or another. Quick FYI, before we get too much into it, we've got just a few months before my first ever book is out in the world. If you want to pre-order it for yourself or anyone you love, you can do that in the link in the show notes, or you can search it online. It's called Main Street Millionaire. You'll love it. I think it'll make you a lot of money, and I hope you guys pre-order it. Hello, and welcome back to all those who put in the work. I'm Codie Sanchez, and this is the Big Deal podcast. Okay, this segment's a little bit different and interesting, I hope, for you guys. We're going to call this one something along the lines of current events. If you want to tell us what you think we should name this podcast, drop it in the links. Come up with a catchy name for us. We've got our interview podcasts, we've got our Moneymaker podcast series, and now we got this one where we talk to you about what's happening in the world. Let me preface it with this. I think we have to obsess a little bit for just a small amount of time on what's happening with the government right now around us. Let me tell you why. I used to run a business in Latin America at a company called First Trust. We grew it to over $1 billion in assets under management. We were one of the fastest growing international businesses in Latin America. And before I left that company to go start my own, I watched what happens when we let the government get in the way of business. In fact, when I was in Latin America running our business was the same time a new president came on board in a country called Argentina, and that president's name was Cristina Fernandez. Cristina Fernandez came into an Argentina that was just starting to write its way out of formerly socialist policies. And Cristina Fernandez came in, and over the span of 3 to 6 months, she nationalized just about every business. She kicked people out of the country like me, who had financial companies where we were helping people who knew that the Argentinian dollar there at the time was really volatile. So even now, if you go to Argentina, you don't go to a bank to exchange your currency, you go to the black market because you get a much better rate, and oftentimes they run out of dollars in the banks in Argentina. And that is because they've had really poor management by the government. So my business was all around Latin America. And in the span of the night, Cristina Fernandez made my business illegal, which was just allowing them to invest in international exchange-traded funds, mutual funds, things we think of as normal, because she wanted to keep all the money in Argentina. She wanted to lock down all of production, and she wanted to own everything. And because of that, the economy cratered overnight. And some of my friends who own businesses there had them taken away. And we had a mass exodus from Argentina, and the country has never really recovered. And I watched that. And so now when people say, Codie, stay in your lane, don't talk about the government, I don't talk about Republicans or Democrats. I think they're largely the same in many ways. I talk about the fact that we have to protect our own freedoms, and that I will do everything I humanly can to fight for each one of you to be your own sovereign and to be in charge, and to have no big brother or big government tell you what you can and can't do. You don't need it. I think that you are more competent than most people who wear a little flag lapel on their pin and try to tell you that they're here to protect you. And so today I thought we got to look at something that's a little crazy, which is what's happening with government spending. And I want to break that down, but I wanted to tell you why. Because if we let the government become what Argentina became, which is somewhere where they nationalize the economy because the government doesn't know how to build, government only knows how to protect and how to spend. They are not innovators. You guys are. And I don't want us to become a poor replica of a country that has more wealth and beauty you can imagine. Argentina's gorgeous, but sadly people in power who don't believe in the individuals. They believe in the collective. And so let's talk about what the hell's going on in the world today. We're going to do this pretty quickly. We're going to break it down, and we're going to come up with some ideas for what to do next. Okay, first, as of July 26, 2024, the U.S. federal debt has skyrocketed to $35 trillion. Almost equal to the size of the economy. Not fun. Listen, the thing is, this is not actually new news, as the U.S. has been running a deficit for a very long time, since 2001, meaning we've been spending more than we earn and borrowing to fill that gap. Things got even worse after March 2020. You guys all remember this, COVID, when central bankers started partying like they just closed an IPO and had bottle service at Tao in New York. You just picture the little central bankers shaking their champagne bottles. So why should we care about this? Well, economic ruin does not sound fun. And not to be dramatic, but this debt could lead to a budget crisis, higher interest rates, and economic instability. And so I think we got to really understand it. Because more than that, long term, it could hurt America's standing in the world, which candidly, we can't afford right now. I thought I'd do an episode really clearly breaking down what is going on, why it matters, in a way that won't put you to sleep, but will make you sound smarter than either your neocon, perma-war uncle at the family gathering or your kind of commie, money is a human right cousin who's never had a real job. Cool? Okay, we're going to break it all down. And we're going to read up on what some of the brightest minds in business have to say about this. So let's steal their homework and get into it. But first, don't be greedy. Share the pod with the needy. I repost all of you who tag me in your Instagram stories sharing the pod. So make my day and your bud's bank account swell and share this episode. We see a ton of people downplaying our economic situation, and it makes me nervous. Some of the smartest minds in business are starting to sound the alarm. The contrarian view here is that we should actually be listening to these warnings. You see, our economic challenges, it doesn't mean that we're about blind optimism or doom and gloom. It's about facing hard truths, considering unconventional solutions, and being prepared. All right, so Elon Musk has been sounding the alarm about our financial situation. I know some people don't like him and think he's mean or think he's not great, and that could all be true, but he's definitely smart. And anytime somebody has a bank account bigger than I do and has built something bigger than I have, I like to at least listen to part of it. And I want to break down and see where I disagree or where I agree. But with a guy like this, it's worth seeing what his brain is thinking. So he said things like, the dollar will be worth nothing if the US doesn't do something about its national debt, like this tweet right here. And he's basically talking about the fact that this tweet talks about interest payments on US national debt will shatter 1.1 trillion this year, eating 76% of all income taxes collected. And I think whether you like the guy or not, he's pretty much a legend. And so let's quantify him before I use a few more takes from him and a few more of his research. So think about this for a second. I think that Elon Musk might be one of the best CEOs of our generation. And then you might go, oh, Cody, you're just a fangirl. You're an Elon stooge. Okay, let's qualify this in a few different ways. Do you run a business that is harder than rocket ships in space? No, you probably don't. No, I fucking don't either. Okay, well, he does that business. And not only does he do that business, get this stat, 60% of all satellites in Earth's orbit are now from Starlink. 60%. Look at this image, which basically shows of the 10,036 satellites in the Earth's orbit, Starlink has 6,800 of them. How about from this perspective? The US will launch like 159 rockets this year. SpaceX has already launched 84. Last year, he launched 96. Okay, so he's pretty good at space, one of the hardest games out there. And oh, by the way, if you fuck up, you die. That's pretty serious. But it's not even talking about what he's done in media, electric cars, batteries, and open sourcing that technology. If you think about it, a friend of mine, Balaji, has a great tweet where he talks about how hardware is one of the most difficult tech or businesses that you could run. And then you add the fact that he's going electric, space, reusable rockets, and managing 3 multi-billion-dollar companies simultaneously. I think his pain tolerance must be unrivaled. And on top of that, anyone who thinks he's bad for the economy is either lying or so dumb as to be irrelevant. I think we should pray that our best and brightest, like him, continue to exist and that our government is 1/10 as efficient using our tax dollars as he is using his shareholders' dollars. In fact, I think if you're wondering if you should date a woman and take her home to your mom, or if you should date a guy and take him home to your dad, you should ask them what they think of Elon Musk. I think it is a great litmus test of intelligence to ask somebody, do you think that Elon Musk is better for society or worse for society? If they say worse for society, cut and fucking run. And so, before we get into more, I just wanted you to know what the man's accomplished, because I think it's really easy to look at Twitter and say his memes are dumb and I don't like that he did this or that. But we've got to go one step deeper than this. So when I was looking at more data from a couple people that I respect highly, from Elon Musk, from Balaji, from another one of my good friends, Brian Westbury, who's an economist, I pulled together a bunch of information on the debt crisis overall in the US. And what I thought was fascinating is we've been running a deficit for years, obviously. And at which point, most people on the internet will go something along the lines of, this doesn't matter, we can keep printing capital, we're the tallest of all the midgets, which is a way of saying that, we're the best economy in the world still, even if all the economies aren't that great, at least we're better than theirs. But there's a couple things that are different than at any time. One is, look at rising interest costs. I mean, the government is spending more and more just to pay interest on the debt. This has become becoming one of the largest expenses in the federal budget, which you can see right here looking at this slide. And then look at social programs at risk, like Social Security, Medicare. They could run out of money in the next decade, leaving millions of Americans without critical support. I think if you also want to have a litmus test of an intelligent person, the next question should be, can we continue to have social programs structured the way that we do? Or should they be need-based? Because at some point we won't be able to have an input like this for one generation to the next. In fact, Scott Galloway has an incredible TED Talk basically talking about how these programs are stealing from the youth to give to the next generation. And I think that is actually true. I think if you are a mom, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, and you look at this data and you don't think that you are stealing from the youth to pay for your generation, you're not looking at the math very clearly. Now, the problem is that the government can't seem to do anything about this. Lawmakers don't want to fix it. It's very unpopular. But why? Because voters are not young people. Voters are middle-aged to older. And so it's human nature. We vote in our self-interest, and those who are older are going to continue to vote these programs on. And, I think there's a really interesting post out there by Balaji. He basically talks about the true state of the financial situation in the U.S. and talks a lot about debt, borrowing, and the value of the dollar. What's interesting, I'm going to break down 3 of these graphs. So the first one, we basically see how when the government puts a program in place, they rarely pull it back. This is important to know. It happened during TARP, that's the Asset Relief Program, which happened in 2008, post-financial crisis. It happened on 9/11 with rolling out widespread ability to keep us safe, but also learn a lot about its citizenry. Never pulled that back as well. So in 2003, the Fed issued more emergency loans than during the 2008 financial crisis. Think about that for a second. If you look at this graph, you can see it's like, 5x more emergency loans in 2023 than 2008. If you guys weren't around in the workplace in 2008, it was bad. I was actually at Goldman in 2009, 2010, which was the worst part of the crisis. 2008 is when it started. You saw the first trickle from Lehman Brothers, and like a game of dominoes, you basically saw one bank fall after bank fall after bank fall. And in 2009 and 2010 is when Goldman really got it. And we had to go in front of the Senate and give a bunch of commentary about what had happened in the financial crisis. So what is scary to me is remembering what happened in 2008. If we are anywhere near that in 2023 to 2024, it's scary. If we are 4 to 5 times that by the federal government, I'm actually not sure how to quantify that. Then if we look at it from this level, all right, so emergency loans, not great. Maybe that's not that big of a deal. Well, let's look at borrowing levels. The U.S. is borrowing more now than during the COVID-19 pandemic, with interest rates around 5%. So during COVID-19, we were basically at 0% interest rates. Now we're at 5%. You guys know what that feels like. Have you tried to go get a house lately? Have you looked at the difference in interest rates for the mortgage you could afford 2 or 3 years ago versus now? That is what's happening in the government at scale. This graph is basically showing you, oh my gosh, we are issuing trillions of dollars in bonds. And oh, by the way, we're paying really high interest payments to do it. The next graph is basically showing you interest payments on the national debt that we have. And what's crazy is for the first time ever, we have net interest. So just us paying our interest payments. It's like you having a credit card that instead of you paying off the amount every month, you just pay the interest that you accumulate. That fat debt is still sitting there on your credit card. And on top of it, you're barely making interest payments. Well, for the first time ever, our net interest payments in the US, we pay more towards those than we do our national defense, which is scary in a world in which China's China-ing. And we have what's happening in the Middle East, and we have what's happening in Russia. Then we got a trifecta, in case you guys aren't ready to slit your wrists already, which is the dollar devaluation. So the dollar's lost 25% of its value in just 4 years. 25 cents of every dollar that you own, you have lost because of devaluation of our dollar over the last 4 years. If you were to go back to the 70s, we're talking about losing almost 75% of $1 in just that amount of time. Then, interestingly enough, who owns most treasuries, or the way that we fund our economy? Who is our mom and dad funding our bills? Well, that's China in a lot of ways. China holds more treasury securities than anybody else, but Rutro, since about 2010 when they peaked, 2014 when they peaked again, they are now back to almost historical lows of how much they own of treasuries. So China doesn't want to be our buddy and stabilize our economy anymore. So I talk a lot about business buying and I get a lot of questions about it. One of the most common questions is, where do you find a business to buy? The answer is sad because the worst deals are oversaturated marketplace sites, but the best deals are off-market or curated. Either way, finding a business to buy basically sucks, and I think it should suck less. So that's why we've built something for you guys, BizScout, a business buying marketplace full of only the best deals for both on and off-market. And BizScout is just built different, okay? We've got verified buyers, so the best sellers are actually interested in selling. Scout sites, aka at a glance, what's the quick analysis of this deal? Off-market data, so you can get all the info you need to direct outreach efficiently. Embedded lending, so you can get your financing for the business right where you buy it. BizScout is going to change the face of Main Street buying and selling. Probably not immediately. We have a lot more work to do, but I want you guys to be part of it, to be part of the buyers and builders in this next round. So you guys are one of the first to hear. Go to bizscout.com and check it out. Then we've got the BRICS. I remember when these got created when I was at Goldman, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. It's a grouping of countries that came together to sort of combat U.S. dominance, right? They came together and said, what if we create a coalition between the four of us? Well, it turns out that many people outside of the U.S., including the BRICS nation, which are a huge block of power, are buying large amounts of gold instead of U.S. treasuries. I mean, check this out. You can basically see that during the financial crisis, we had record high levels of gold bought. More gold than I know how to quantify. We got Fort Knoxes of gold all around the globe. Well, guess what? We're just about to surpass that level of gold held in 2024. And gold holding is usually an indicator of a risk-off trade, which basically means, oh man, I'm worried about what's happening in the economy, so I'm going to pull back risk. Then we've got de-dollarization. So China has started to use its own currency for most cross-border transactions. What does that mean? Well, in the past, if you wanted to do a deal like China and India, or if you wanted to do a deal China and Latin America, China would use US dollar, Latin American countries would use US dollar, and that would be their trading currency. China's now said, no, we're going to use our own. We're going to use yuan. And that basically means that we're seeing more deals done in Chinese currency than the US currency, at least by China. And that's not great because that decreases the amount of liquidity and usage of our own currency, which we don't want. Then we made another kind of series of dumb decisions. We had a sanction on Russia and Europe that we thought was going to hurt Russia, but actually ended up hurting Europe more. So we said, no natural gas, no energy for you, Europe. We're going to shut you off from Russia because Russia really needs your cash. Turned out not to be the case. The other problem with this, it's like a little highbrow to understand, is like, imagine we used to use the dollar. You were supposed to use the dollar as a government. You were supposed to say, we do not politicize our usage of the dollar. You just go out and for anybody who wants to use the dollar, trade it back and forth amongst people, go off and prosper. Well, the second that you start politicizing the dollar, which means saying, hey, we are going to use sanctions on Russia. We are going to tell them they can't trade in USD. Well, what happens? They start using other currencies and going to other providers, and that's what's happened in Russia. Then the other thing that's a little scary is from a peacetime perspective, usually in times of peace, not times of war, debt goes down. But what has happened to us since the 1900s? Well, we have skyrocketed post-2000 to some of the highest levels of national debt we've ever had. And all of this together tells me that there is something to worry about. And we'll get into answers of what you do next, but have you ever tried to solve a problem without having proper context for a problem? Have you ever started to sit down and think, how do I fix my business? It's not working. How do I fix my relationship? It's not working. Well, if you go to fix your relationship and you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to love language the shit out of them. I'm going to buy her so many flowers and gifts and presents and outings. And you don't actually understand why your wife is upset is because she just wants quality time with you and you to listen to her more and you to be kinder to her. She doesn't want fancy things. She doesn't want flowers. If you don't understand the situation you're in, you can't actually fix it. So I think one of the most important parts of this podcast is to understand what's going on in our world around us so that we can fix it and we can prepare for it properly. So what's interesting is, according to my friend Balaji, who is the CTO of Coinbase, one of the smartest men I know, and did this famous tweet right here, I just burned $1 million to tell you that they're printing trillions. His point here was, I'm concerned about the chance of a crisis. And so Balaji thinks there's a 10% chance of a crisis happening soon, a 70% chance in the next 2 years, which is scary,
because he's very smart. Now, what does that look like? If you look back at history, it took just 2 days from the collapse of SVB, you guys remember Silicon Valley Bank sort of collapsing and everybody freaking out, to then the government printing $300 billion. Within 2 weeks, $500 billion was withdrawn from local banks seeking safety. That was one bank and its ripple effect. Lockdowns due to COVID-19 were implemented just 2 months after the virus hit the US. The financial crisis was only acknowledged 2 quarters after Ben Bernanke's, the chairman of the Fed at the time, mild recession, famously, mild recession prediction. And then, Balaji says, the USSR transitioned from a superpower to collapse in just 2 years. And so his point here is multi-pronged, which is we have major issues all across our economy, which means that you guys need to learn how to become asset holders more and more. We need to learn how to become asset holders, because if we add on top of this the commercial real estate crisis that I think is happening all around us, you guys have seen it. You travel around to different parts of your city here in Austin, Texas. If you were to drive any street with eyes to see, you would see vacant commercial centers. Why would that happen? Somebody owns those. Why would they just be sitting there empty? Well, they're sitting there empty because in order for them to sell it, they'd have to mark down their portfolio, which means that they'd have to say, we told you investors this was worth $100, it's actually worth $20. And because of that, they're going to have a ripple effect through their entire portfolio. It's also why they aren't leasing those things out. Then we've got pension crisis. We've got underfunded pensions to the tune of like $1.4 trillion with a T. We've got auto loans rising in their default rate, which means people not about to pay them. I think that's also at risk. We've also got record high credit card debt. So $930 billion in credit card debt in the US. This is a all-time high. And then we've got more people moving away from the dollar. So we've got some serious issues here in this country, which is why I impress upon all of us to really think about how do we get to financial freedom and protect ourselves from an environment in which we have global uncertainty that we've probably never seen before. I think maybe the only place that's worse off in some degrees is Europe, because they're literally playing a game of 1984 between the government instituting that somebody could get jailed because of what they tweet or put on Facebook is something that I never thought I'd see in my lifetime. All right, let's get into some wild and crazy stuff now that we're talking about 1984 in Europe, because why not? Crazy idea. I don't think it's awesome to have Facebook CEO Zuckerberg tell you that he was lightly coerced into censoring news during the last election cycle and also during COVID. I don't think it's awesome to have a founder of a tech company arrested in France for not sharing information on citizens. I definitely don't think it's awesome for governments like the UK and the European Union to say that they would come after even US citizens for things that they say online that they don't like. Elon Musk posted this tweet, which is sadly kind of true. It's 2030 in Europe and you're being executed for liking a meme, which increasingly feels like that could be reasonable. But what's fascinating to me is we don't seem to be very good at second and third order effects. We think that if one party tells us something we don't like, we should censor them. But we don't actually think about the opposite, which is what happens when your party or the opposite party from yours says something that you don't like. What happens when your guys go out of power and the other guys come into power? Then you just play a game of going after one another. It's why we shouldn't arrest former presidents for political reasons. It's why we should make sure everybody gets free speech, even when we don't like what they're saying. And it's why we should make sure that we push back on censorship anywhere we can. And yet, for some reason, this has become non-normalized. It's become okay for people to say that you shouldn't be allowed to talk. Stay in your lane. You're not an expert. Motherfucker, no. I'm an expert as an American in the First Amendment, which is that we have the right to free speech. And I do not think we should allow anybody to push back on that. Now, I got to read this next thing to you because let's go back to Argentina and Venezuela, where I had a business before. So if you've never been to Venezuela, you probably didn't know that if you wanted to buy a chicken, this is how much money you would need, or about 14 million bolivars, which is their version of a dollar. That would be the equivalent to $2.22 USD. 14 million bolivar?
to $2.22. Now, how did it happen where in Venezuela, their currency became worth so little that they make purses out of it like this on the street? Like literally you can have a purse made entirely of dollar bills. You know how that started? Price controls. 2 words that sound awesome and actually are not, which is probably why that quote is true, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It just sounds so good. I go to the grocery store and I see the prices of groceries today and I get pissed. I'm like, why do I have to pay $20 for this fancy organic XYZ? The problem is that we don't want the government to set anything. And let me explain. And I'm not going after one candidate or another. I won't even say who said this idea about price controls. All I will say is, if you want a masterclass in price controls, go look at Venezuela and Argentina and see how it worked out for them. Spoiler, not great. So I want to read you a tweet from a friend of mine. We should just listen to what he has to say about it. This is a friend of mine, Robert, who is the CFO of a company. He's saying people need to stop overreacting about X's plan to reduce food inflation, as it would lead to communism, mass starvation, and the end of America. He's like, come on, I worked in M&A in the food industry. Here's a step-by-step summary of what would actually happen. Step 1, the government announces that grocery retailers aren't allowed to raise prices. Grocery stores, which operate on 1 to 2 net margins, can't survive if their suppliers raise prices. So the government announces that food producers, next line, also aren't allowed to raise prices. Okay, well, not all grocery stores are created equal, so stores in lower income areas make less money than high income ones, right? Because these aren't able to cover their overhead, grocery chains start to shut down. So that means we have food deserts in rural areas, in low income urban areas. That becomes even worse. Meanwhile, margins for food producers going down. Their primary costs, ingredients, energy, and labor, aren't fixed, and they have shrinking profits. So, number 5, grocery stores, which have finite shelf space, start to repurpose their stores, those that didn't have to shut down, to sell more non-price controlled items. So your local Kroger or Safeway starts to look and feel more like a Walmart. Food producers then stop making products with lower margins. No eggs or milk or bread because they can't make any money on it, so their businesses are starting to die. So then they compete on things like payment terms and how long you can pay for something. Then small grocery chains start to shut down entirely, so whole chains, or they get sold to larger chains like Kroger. In addition, not being able to cover the fixed costs, a major reason is because they can't secure delivery of products due to producers prioritizing sales to larger customers and those that might stay in business because they have to float sometimes the customer payment. So the smaller food producers, which typically sell via distributors rather than right to the grocery stores, they go out of business because these producers have an additional step in their value chain. So they actually have higher costs because you're a smaller guy. As supply chains break down, lines start to form outside grocery stores every morning. Now, cities assign police officers to patrol store parking lots, and food producers draft contingency plans to assign armed escorts to delivery trucks. Step 10, the federal government announces a program to issue block grants for states to purchase and operate shuttered grocery stores, because government's here to help. The USDA also seizes closed down production facilities because you're not allowed to close down. 11, the government announces that prices for all key food costs, corn, wheat, cattle, energy, are now fixed to stop profiteers, in air quotes, from gouging the now government-operated food industry. 12, shockingly, the government struggles to operate one of the most complex industries on the planet. The entire food supply chain starts imploding. What happens next? Communism, mass starvation, and the end of America quickly ensue. Hey, wait a second. And you have to laugh at this slightly, except that it's a tale as old as time. I had a friend who ran, I kid you not, a distributor for Mercedes-Benz in Argentina. And when Cristina Fernandez came in and took over the government, they nationalized his business and they mandated he produced coffee. This motherfucker knew nothing about coffee, but they could export coffee. And she no longer wanted to allow imports of Mercedes-Benz. So what happened? He tried for a while before the business went under because he had no idea what he was doing. That is the problem with when we try to have the government as big brother taking care of anything. And this is where some people go, well, some price controls are great. And you're right. Some price controls are necessary so profiteers do not gouge the American public. Like, for instance, you could say, what about pharma? What about those fuckers in pharma just charging us $1 million for everything? And you'd be right in some ways. For instance, U.S. drug prices are roughly 3x higher than prices anywhere else. And yet, we account for roughly a third up to 60% of the revenue of US pharma companies. In some places, price controls are intelligent. Like, for instance, we should be thoughtful about life-saving drugs and trying to make sure that we have price controls so people can have access to them and there doesn't become a massive amount of profiteering. But the problem becomes when we think that something that works on the edges works across the board. And that is the truth of what's happening right now in the US. So the truth of the matter is, we got some work to do. But I think what you need to realize listening to all of this is that your ability to earn is really focused on two things. That is your willingness to continue to do what it takes and your ability to pick the right market for you. That market increasingly is something that you have to think about when it comes to federal and regulatory oversight. Lots of people these days like to play in online businesses, for instance. They like to play in businesses that seem a little bit sexier. But guess what? In a market in which we're coming into a recession, in which things might get harder, you are probably going to be happier with a plumbing company that everybody needs, as opposed to a gaming company online, as opposed to starting that e-commerce store that you saw with some one-off widget that nobody really actually needs. When times get tough, there's always a way to make money, but some ways are a lot harder than others. If you guys think we should do an entire episode on what to do in order to make money and continue to persevere in a down market when we have a recession, if the market continues to get more difficult, let me know and we will do that on one of these next podcasts. But in the meantime, remember this. Whenever the government says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, they're typically not. And I am talking about red, white, blue, purple, whatever the fuck color they show up as. The only good government is one that is at a distance, allowing you to be able to continue to do the things you need to do on a daily basis, as opposed to mandating you do one thing or another. And that is a hill I will die on. All right, if you guys thought this was useful and an interesting way to break down some of the stuff that we're talking about so you can be more intelligent in conversations where people want to get emotional about politics and economics as opposed to being rational about it, let me know in the comments. We're going to maybe do more of these current events because I think in a world so crazy, we've got to know what's going on so we know what's coming. See you next time.